Welcome to How to Live Slow, the podcast where we discuss slow living for the modern woman and help you design an intentionally slower family life. I'm Rachelle Glendon, your personal slow living coach and host of this podcast. I know all about busy, but I love living slow. Enjoy the show. Well, hello and welcome back to the How to Live Slow podcast. It is so amazing to have you here with me today. Today's episode is the first in a series of 4 episodes called Mental Load May, and I am so excited to finally be sharing these episodes with you. So this podcast series is for you if you feel like the tension between what you want motherhood to be like and what it is actually like doesn't quite match up. If you're feeling really stressed by the mental load and overwhelmed by all that you have to do, then this episode, this series of episodes, the next 4, is for you. These 4 episodes, so starting today, there'll be one a week every Wednesday, and we're going to be talking about what the mental load is, how to share it, how to get past the idea of just finding ways to share it, and embracing the power of the mental load as well. So today, obviously, episode 1 in this series, I want to talk a little bit about what the mental load is and a few strategies. I've got some stories to share. This is just going to be a really deep approach to thinking about the mental load, and which is kind of ironic to say. And of course, when I started writing the notes for these 4 episodes, I was like, do you know what? I've got so much more to say than just these 4 episodes. So there will be things that I don't end up including. If you want to follow along with more in depth about the mental load, do come across to my website. It's howtoliveslow.com, and you can subscribe to my email address, my email newsletter, where I send out one. I try to send them weekly, but they sometimes are fortnightly. And we'll talk about why that doesn't really always work as part of the mental load episodes. But come across, because I'll be sharing so much more. This is just the beginning of a whole new kind of chapter in the How to Live Slow podcast. Now, the ultimate goal for How to Live Slow is to help mums, gentle mums, or mums approaching parenting with a gentle focus, meaning like more attachment parenting style, mums who are trying to find the balance between working life, motherhood, friendship circles, maintaining their relationships, all of that, but who find themselves in many ways kind of more busy than they had ever intended, and how we kind of get stuck in this overwhelm of all the to-do lists and all of the keeping up with the Joneses and all of that. We want to bring it back and really focus on what is most important to us and create that dream family life. You know, that when you become a mother, you kind of envision what it's going to be like. And so often the reality of the real world kind of takes us away from that. And so How to Live Slow is here to help you kind of come back to the center of what you really truly desire from your life as a family. So that's kind of the reason behind why I wanted to start this series. Now, let's go into what the mental load is. So you may have heard this called emotional labor. You might have heard it just called like household inequity. But the mental load to me is like all of the running to-do lists of everything that we think of as mothers that doesn't always make it onto a to-do list, a handwritten thing. It's all the household jobs, like I call it the domestic load, the mental load, everything that you are required to do as a mother to take care of your family, to take care of yourself, and to keep the schedule running between everybody's competing demands. So your working life, what your husband or partner is doing if you have one, your kids' schedules and school, and making sure everybody's got everything they need, like whether you've got dogs or cats or other pets. You know, it's like keeping the car registered and the services updated, getting everyone's doctor's appointments and dentist, and remembering to fill out all the forms and doing your tax and all of those things, but also remembering to wash clothes at the right time so that everybody's got the right uniforms on the right days, and packing school lunches and bags, and booking holidays and buying birthday presents for friends and family, remembering to call relatives, all of that stuff, that all kind of runs in our minds, and it can really overwhelm us. So that, I don't know about you, but for me, the mental load really impacts me. I call this here's a story for you. I call it my feminist awakening. And it all came about so we've got a pretty traditional old-fashioned kind of relationship, me and my husband. It wasn't intentional really, I guess, because I'm at home full time. But I also work my husband and I have a family business that we started 10 years ago. It's a trades-based business. My husband's a tradie. We have a number of guys working for us. It's varied over the years. And I realized that I needed to stay home and with the kids. And there was one of us, I call it the flexible parent. One of us had to be the flexible parent, and that landed on me. And that was all completely fine. That meant that I was the one that was available for the daycare drop-offs and the grocery shopping and all of that. And I was here so that my husband had the abilities to go out and build his career, build his business, and do it as and when is required. So sometimes he leaves home at 5 a.m. in the morning. Sometimes he's home by lunchtime. Sometimes he has to go away for a few nights here or there, and it's always varied over the time. And if I was trying to fit in a full-time job as well as raising the kids, as well as, doing my own life stuff and our family admin and all of that, something would have given. Like, it wouldn't have been possible for us. So, probably well before we had the kids, we made the decision that I would be like a stay-at-home mum. But I also work. My kids have always I've always had like a nanny when they were really, really little babies. I've had a nanny because I needed to do wages and financial accounts and things like that, even from when they were newborn. So I've never really had a maternity leave from that sense. But I also then put them into daycare or childcare for a couple of days a week. So because I worked from home. So I don't consider myself a full-time stay-at-home mum, but I'm also not a full-time working mum either. I've kind of got this weird dynamic. And then I guess when my second son was born, and he was around 1, when I really wanted to start doing something else for myself, came in the form of this podcast, which originally was a YouTube channel, but then I realized like podcasting is a little bit easier. There's no set design, there's no makeup required. I can just hop on here and share what I have to say. I get to connect with other mothers and other guests on here as well. But what happened was when I started the podcast, which is now 2 years old, but it was a couple of months in advance, before I started. I started How to Live Slow in August 2019, so coming up to 3 years in a few months' time. But when I started that and it started to take up some more of my time, there was this weird friction because suddenly I had to not maintain all of the things that I was doing for the family. Something had to give, right? So sometimes I didn't do washing on the right day, and somebody didn't have a uniform, or I didn't do the groceries and we were out of milk in the morning, and my brain went a bit scattered. And I realized, like, why is this happening? Every time I want to do something for myself, I want to do the podcast, I want to do all of the stuff that's required around that, and I love it. And I got really frustrated because it felt like every time I took some time to do the thing I wanted to do, it meant someone in my family missed out on something that I needed to do for them. And it caused a little bit of friction in our marriage. And it wasn't just because my husband was saying, "Oh, I don't want you to do the podcast." Actually, the podcast didn't come into it. He's always been very encouraging that I have myself something for me. But what we both didn't really realize is that was the thing that was taking me away from, I was only just barely keeping up with all of the other stuff and, that I've just sort of laid out. And it started arguments, and because I was getting frustrated, but neither of us really realized what was actually going on. It just felt like, why? Maybe we just thought it's because we've got the 2 kids and now things are a bit more stretched and stressed. And this is why I call it my feminist awakening, because I started learning more about patriarchal motherhood and how, for the first time really, there was pressure on me, or my life was kind of stretched because I wanted something for me. And patriarchal motherhood is this idea that women should work like they don't have kids, and they should parent like they don't have a job, and everything falls on the woman, and motherhood comes easily to women, and mothers like doing everything for everyone else. And that's not, there's so much more to it. Obviously, patriarchal motherhood is this whole system that we live in that says women do the caring roles, which means everything. But also because we're in this life now where I guess women are also told they can have it all, which means actually doing it all, because if you want to work and you want to have children and you want to have, all of those other things that come with a modern life, but there's not that same pressure on men. And that's where we realize, this is where we went internal to our relationship and sort of talked about it. I guess, men's kind of version, like their instructions or their cultural conditioning sort of says to them, well, your job is to earn the money, your job is to work and provide, and that's not necessarily beneficial to them either. So we sort of, I guess I'm going to get into this whole thing a little bit more in another episode, but I just wanted to kind of give you a bit of background knowledge or background information and a bit of a story as to where I'm coming from, as where this kind of sparked for me the journey into a more equitable household relationship or, dynamic, and how we've gotten to a point where I wouldn't say that we do 50-50 household work. I wouldn't say we do 50-50 mental load. It's definitely not that, but it does feel more equal, and we have a deeper understanding about where we're both coming from a cultural conditioning point of view, and how we both perceive each other and our contributions, and how we work as a team, and how sometimes one of us picks up more slack and sometimes the other picks up more, and we work together. And we've moved kind of beyond just figuring out how to share the mental load to something even better. And so that's kind of where we're going with this whole episode series. I'm not saying that my relationship is 100% perfect, or that we've got it fully sorted out, or that even my methods or the things that I've done in our relationship will always work for every relationship. This is always, everything I share on How to Live Slow is always about sharing my perspective and hopefully giving you the tools and ideas and inspiration for you to go away and see what will work for you, figure out a solution for you. And so now is a really good time, before we get on to the next part of this episode, to let you know that I'm now in a position that I'm really, really excited about, to be able to share with you that as of May, I will be opening up my books to even more one-on-one clients. So as a celebration, like as a promotional offer, I guess for Mental Load May, I've got places in my diary for 1 hour, I guess you would call them slow coaching sessions. So it's 60 minutes for $60, and you can book in with that at the link in the description of the show notes. It's how to live slow /work with me. The link is in the description, or you can head over to my website and it'll all be really obvious there. It's just howtoliveslow.com. So for $60, you can book in for a 1 hour session with me, and we can have a chat about how you might, where are you stuck? What part of slow living do you need help with? Slow living, the mental load, like motherhood, all of that stuff. Like, how can you move forward? Motherhood doesn't have to be overwhelming. You can enjoy it. You can find ways to slow down, hone in on your priorities, and hopefully, I would love to chat with you and hopefully help you with just moving towards one step towards what you really desire for your motherhood journey through my slow coaching methods. So I would love to chat with you. If you wanted to book in for that, make sure you do. I've got a couple of spaces each week. So I'm really excited to be able to offer that now that we've got a little bit more space and capacity within our family diary. So hop on there. You can just book directly into one of those spots. Yeah, all the information is there, as I said. So now I've shared a little bit. Now I want to tell you another little story. I'm currently reading this book called More Than a Woman, which is an actual hilarious book by Caitlin Moran, and I'm enjoying it immensely. It's another motherhood book. Like, I've read so many books on this topic of mental load and domestic load and household equity and feminism and patriarchal motherhood and matrescence and all of that, like slow living. This is my jam, right? I could talk for days about this topic and the whole range of topics related to it. But this book is quite unique because it's really funny, and this can be a pretty serious topic in a way. I have something else to add to there, but I just want to say what she mentions is, and this kind of highlights exactly what I'm saying, right? She said, if you go into the magazine section, like say you go to the news agency or you go to a supermarket, you go to the magazine section. If you have a look, it's like the women's section is called Women's Lifestyle, and there's all sorts of range of books around, lifestyle books, cooking, and like every kind of, all of those magazines have got different sections within the magazine. But if you go to the men's section, it's called Men's Interest, and each magazine is like golf or soccer or football or cars or whatever. It's one particular interest. So I guess this idea illustrates that the workings of the woman's brain versus the men's brain. So women are, as by nature, or whether it's by nature or whether it's our cultural conditioning or what, we've just been raised to think about a lot more things and have a generalist knowledge about a lot of different topics. So how to dress, how to cook, how to, pass an exam, all of those things. There's all, like, we have this kind of being more socially aware of what's going on around us versus the male brain, which has generally been, the story that men get is that they're allowed to kind of focus on something that's really interesting to them and go really deep on it. That's more specialist and specific. And because of that dynamic, and, right or wrong, I don't have any judgment over whether this is the right thing or the wrong thing. It's just kind of what it is. And we have to work with what we've got. But that has kind of meant that, and from a beneficial point of view with men's careers, they're able to focus. And, Annabelle Crabb kind of says, like the wife drought, because her book is called The Wife Drought. And it's all about this idea that the 40-hour work week or men's careers have been always supported by having a wife at home to take care of all the domestic stuff. And that's all fine until a woman wants to go off and do work, and she doesn't have a wife necessarily. So there's no one to capture that other, second shift. So that's where we're kind of getting stuck here in this mental load overwhelm. So we kind of got to figure out, well, how as a family can we come back together and split it a bit better so that, we've both got a wife, I guess. We're both contributing to, both partners are contributing to make it so that the domestic side of our lives is valued, taken care of, and sorted out, and that's the problem. We need to start thinking about how to that work is actually valuable. It makes the world run. So anyway, that kind of illustrated to me, that magazine idea, that kind of illustrates exactly this point, that we raise our boys to be, we allow them to take as much time as they need to do their study and focus and get stuck into a topic. But women aren't necessarily, or girls aren't necessarily given that same leeway. We don't kind of put pressure on our girls to think about taking care of the home at an earlier age and all sorts. So just something to kind of think about. So I also just want to say as well, that's what I was going to say before, I know that this might seem like, well, why does it really matter? Who cares about the mental load? Why is this such a big topic? Or why am I focusing on this? And it's because, well, I think we need to expand our view, because it does really matter. Because as women, we're entitled to enjoy our lives. We're entitled to enjoy our marriages if we're married or in a long-term, like in relationships. And we're entitled to enjoy motherhood. And also doing this work where we figure out ways of, sorting the mental load out so that we're not overburdened by it means that, you've heard me talk before about the Martyr to Matriarch kind of method. This is us not carrying on that super mom kind of modeling for our kids where we show that the woman has to do it all. This is us breaking cycles and patterns and teaching our kids, both our boys and our girls, that there is a contribution required and, to enjoy it and to see the value in it. We don't want to be stuck in martyr mode mothering, which is that patriarchal mothering where we feel like we have to do it all and that not being perfect in our mothering and not getting it all right is some sort of failure. I like the idea, or I like to share here in this point, the idea that society needs to value motherhood and caring work. But what we often forget is that we are society. So we have it in our reach to be able to change the way society values the caring roles of motherhood and family life by learning to value what we do as mothers as a valuable and important part of society. So because we're society, right? So if we model valuing caring work and valuing domestic labor and valuing the inputs of what we do as mothers, then we can shift and change society in measurable ways, in ways that are tangible. And we do that by, also encouraging other mothers to value what they do. And I like to sort of say, one of the things that I think about that's really shifted things in my mind is that, the idea that, the man is supporting you to stay at home with your kids or to work part-time. And he's the hero because he's, taking care of you. But it's not true. There's a lot of research and a lot of evidence to show that when a male or a working partner has a support partner at home, that their career takes off and does much better. And so equally, yours or the person who stays home or the person who's the flexible parent is equally supporting that person's career to thrive and to grow. They are more able to take promotions. They're more able to say yes to things that will lead them to achieving more at work and, earning more and all of that. And so we have to see it as contributing equally to the long-term goals of the family. And when we can see that, it's more likely that we're going to stay together and be in a longer term relationship, and more likely that, even if things do break down, that each partner is taken care of and each partner is seen as valuing equally and contributing equally. So that's why I think it's so important to do this work. And it might seem like on the top layer, all we're talking about here is how to stop nagging and how to get him to help more with taking the bins out. But it's so much deeper than that for me, and so much more important and valuable and life-changing than we all sort of, it looks on the surface level, but when you look deeper underneath, this really does have a wide-ranging impact on our lives as mothers and as women. So that's that. That's all I kind of want to say today. Oh, actually, no, I do want to add one little other thing. So we can approach this mental load sharing, or, how to deal with and cope with and manage the mental load. We can borrow ideas from other kind of areas. And particularly I'm talking about slow living and minimalism. And we can borrow ideas from habits and the understanding of, we're even going to be talking about like childhood experiences and breaking cycles and patterns and doing inner healing work. There is so much here that we can utilize and draw on other topics and areas to really enhance our experience. And one of those things is with minimalism that I want to share with you today, just as a little takeaway, because actually the takeaway here today is that yes, if you want to go on this journey of creating a more equitable and more fulfilling relationship and family dynamic, it will increase your mental load initially. It will take some work, it will take some commitment. But if you're anything like me, you have realized that you want to be a more active player in your own life rather than passively waiting for other people to change. So if you want other people to change, you have to be prepared to do the inner work and the inner changing yourself as well. And that's kind of ultimately what we're here for. So, and what this whole podcast is all for. So it will be worth it. I can say that over the long term. Like we all say that we'll, over time, we're prepared to give our partners time to change, but we have to kind of put frameworks and timelines around it. And we have to also be prepared to look at the spectrum, because this spectrum of unhealthy patterns that they may have, there's a spectrum of unhealthy patterns and behaviors that we also have as mothers. And we'll talk about that all in upcoming episodes as well. But for now, maybe consider releasing yourself from the pressure of getting it all perfect and getting it all right. Something that I like to do is called a not to do list. And my not to do list includes all the things, kind of like reduces your decisions. So it's to help you with not feeling so overwhelmed. You just decide, I don't do these things. Like I don't do a load of washing every day. I don't buy this particular kind of food. I don't say yes to, like there's no screens in the morning for the kids. Like whatever the family rules are or whatever you don't do, just choose them so that you take away some decisions and you let yourself off the hook for some of the things that aren't actually all that important. I don't say yes to invites straight away. I always go away and think about it or consider it. That's another example. But have a little think about what might be on your not to do list and let me know. Send me a message on Instagram or WhatsApp and let's chat about it. I'd love to. And don't forget to book in if you are interested in one of my 1-hour sessions. Do book in, as I said at the start. All the links for how to do that in the show notes and the description, or you can head to my website to the podcast page and click through to episode 85 and all the details will be there for you as well. I hope you've enjoyed this first episode, and next week we are going to be talking about doing that inner work, like learning how to value yourself and what you do as a mother, because the inner work has to come first. You can't make changes on the outside until you make changes on the inside. So we're going to talk a lot more about that next week. I can't wait. I hope you've enjoyed this episode and thank you so much for joining me. Have an amazing week ahead and just breathe, mama. You have totally got this and you deserve it. All right, take care. That's it for another episode. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you'd like to connect further, the show notes from today's episode, including all the social links and free resources, are over on my website, howtoliveslow.com/podcast. Have a beautiful week ahead, and I'll speak with you again soon.